power, and it seems there's no other option but all of us to spend our hard-earned money on alternative power sources, whether it's UPSs, power banks, generators, or if you're lucky enough, solar itself. Now, homeowners, as we know, are investing in solar and all of the other ways to keep their lights on as well, to try and mitigate the impact of the power cuts. It gets tricky, though, with some estates and complexes being marketed on the fact that they do have alternative power sources. So it's forcing those who are in this sector, in this segment, to be thinking about the right way to go about this. Banks even offering loans, as we know, dedicated to solar power. But we're not discussing banks. We're not necessarily discussing the rights of what you're allowed as a homeowner in complexes. I was wanting to speak to Angela Rivers from the Johannesburg Property Owners and Managers Association because, Angela, morning, it's changed the way that those of you in charge of certain sectors and segments are having to think about the way things are being managed. How tricky do these blackouts make your job?
Good morning, Gareth. Yeah, they make our job very difficult and very expensive. Unfortunately, for the market that we represent, which is the affordable housing market in the inner city, the costs have become quite extortionate because in order to run lifts, you have to have generators. Solar just won't cut it in the inner city. To give you an example, Ponty last year spent 1.4 million rand on diesel alone. And that is not money that they can recover from their tenants because we are in the affordable housing market. Some of our guys have looked at solar, but with the limited roof space in the inner city, it's either diesel or inverters, and both of those are not ideal.
No, they're not. We know inverters. I know from personal experience with the stage 6 blackouts, an inverter battery that I got about 6 months ago is flat. I've had to get a new one. Can you believe it? So what is an alternative in a case like this? Are you seeing people wanting to look at affordable housing, but they're also, Angela, wanting affordable housing with what seems to be the luxury of alternative power? Is that what people are now looking for? Is that what your clients are asking for?
Absolutely. We're seeing an increase in tenants, especially in the inner city, when they're doing the applications to become tenants, asking is what's going to happen during load shedding. And it's expensive for the landlord because we're trying very hard not to pass those costs on to the tenant because the cost of living already is so high. Another great example is the Jewel City in the inner city, which is a diversity project worth billions of rands. Last year alone, we had 1,100 hours of load shedding, and that cost them 2.7 million rand in diesel and generator maintenance. The smaller landlords are trying their best, but they can't afford those kind of costs, so they're moving over to the inverter. But as you said, you literally have to replace that battery every 6 to 12 months because of the continuous extended time that load shedding is going on for.
I imagine it's quite a grey area because what do you do, Angela, if you do get an owner that's renting out a property for tenants and one owner decides he's going to take the hit, he or she's going to take the hit and put in solar, for example, another one who's not in the same building? I suppose this is the new waters that we're having to navigate, isn't it?
It's a good way for people for their properties to become more desirable. It's a new selling point. A couple of years ago, it was Wi-Fi. You move into your flat, you get now you move into your flat and you get electricity during load shedding.
That's
huge selling points.
That's where we are as a country as well. I mean, I know we're not going to talk legal on this. I am busy chasing down one or two people who can talk the legalities of complexes and estates on this as well. But have you found that there are some estates that perhaps, or some estates, some complexes, housing properties that are just adverse to the idea of solar? Is it difficult to convince them? I know we're not going legal, but is it difficult to convince property owners to maybe start thinking this way?
Well, I mean, I haven't been in a situation where I've had to convince anyone to do it. I think the pressure comes from the tenants. What we have seen is during downtime when we don't have power, there is an increase in crime and vandalism within the buildings. So it has become a necessity not only for the tenants but also for the landlords to protect their tenants from crime as well as their property being damaged with tenants that are unhappy about not having electricity.
I'll leave this as a last question to you, Angela, as well. I imagine then it's not difficult to see the fact that you'd be losing clients in a case like this. You'd be losing tenants. It's going to have a knock-on effect for the economy, the microeconomy in the area, because that money is going to go elsewhere. There is a knock-on effect. It's not just about having power in your home. It's about the businesses in the area losing those possible clients, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, if you think about it, a small little business restaurant, they can't afford the diesel and the generators. So in that downtime, they're not making any money at all. And, you know, it really does have a ripple effect, because those shop owners are tenants, and then the tenants can't afford to pay their rent because their businesses are struggling. In an economy, I think I was in a meeting the other day where they said currently in Johannesburg we have a 52% unemployment rate. That's crazy, and I don't think load shedding is going to help that at all.
No, it's certainly not, and it doesn't matter what stage of load shedding and blackouts we're in. It's not going to do anyone any favours. Angela, I appreciate the time in talking to us this morning. It's interesting to get a thought of how affordable housing, and just thinking of the term, how that's changed in the last couple of years as well. A manager of Johannesburg Property Owners and Managers Association, Angela Rivers, just talking to us about the affordable housing aspect of this. As I say goodbye to Angela, I am in the process, my team in the process, trying to find someone who can talk to me about the legalities of putting solar installations in at complexes and estates. I know that some estates and most estates don't allow things like generators. So what we are looking for is someone who can really talk legal aspects to me about installing solar in your complex. Some people are allowed, some people aren't. You have to go through the body corporate, for example. It's all quite messy. So if you are watching, or if you're watching and you know someone who could be of assistance to me, I'd love for you to please tweet me directly. My Twitter handle is @GarethEdwardsSA, and I'd look forward to try and find someone that can help all of those who live in complexes and estates. You can't leave people living in the dark just because your body corporate says no. Let's